Hey, Kristy, how you doing?
Good. How about you?
Good, good. I'm in a slightly imperfect scenario of hotspotting off my phone at an Airbnb. So we'll see how this goes. We'll see what kind of
Awesome.
facilitation I can do here.
Well, you sound clear and everything.
I've done it before and it's mostly been all right. And because of what Kate does for a living, I'm kind of not allowed to use other Wi-Fi because of the potential for.
Right. I remember that when I was at your house that one time.
Yeah, I know. It's like it seems a little paranoid, but because she works with city governments, she doesn't want to introduce
Yeah.
any
Oh yeah.
possibilities for bad things to happen.
Totally. No. Sorry, I'm distracted. Melina Barker just asked me for the Zoom link, so I'm gonna send it to
Send
her.
it over. I
Um,
know. I was thinking about you today, and because of the farm to school meeting that you had with Aaron yesterday, and we should have Kristy come on and talk about farm to school with the Hub Network.
oh well, Melina would be way better than me, but
Well, we
some
could
of the
have
people
lots of
do.
people.
Yeah. No, but the only thing that I do have a couple of things that are unique to Far Eastern Oregon, but Rogue Valley has done some amazing stuff with Abigail Blinn,
Mhm.
and just working on that directory. There's a lot of more interesting people than I for that particular thing. Let me send this to her.
Well, I think it's always useful to have our Hub practitioners talk about what they're doing because I think we
Yeah.
learn something every time we hear about how something is happening inside of hubs, and you certainly have a lot of knowledge about it.
No, that's true.
And there's people who are new to it because we've had enough turnover in all of our organizations.
Good point. Yeah, for sure.
I only make good points.
You're right. I stand corrected.
Look at all these wonderful people coming onto the call today. I don't know some of the otters. I don't know. I don't know Kate's otter. I don't know which Kate that is. I know Elle, and Lindsay, and Silket. Andy, we get to see you too. We've got a strong showing from Food Web today. A big strong showing from Food Web. I'm going to drop the link to the notes. So as you go, if you could add yourself to the attendees, that would be really, really helpful. Shin is not here to help us today, so I'm on my own, which always makes me cry, just a little bit. And we have Kristy here, and Shelley will join us at some point to talk about SNAP in their worlds. Let's give folks another couple minutes to come on. Maggie, good to see you. Is that Kristen Penner? Which Kristen is this? That's online. And Will K, I'm not sure I know you. For the folks that are just joining, the link to the notes, so add yourself. That would be helpful. And Melina Barker. Nair Mabo. I love to see everybody here. I was wondering, does anybody have Shelley's phone number by chance? Because I do not. That is Krista Bender, Sarah Sullivan. Good to see everybody. I got to see Sarah Sullivan in person yesterday, and it was amazing.
Sydney made me brunch. That was amazing.
It was sort of Jimmy cracked together. I don't know if it was amazing. It was really smoky yesterday, and Sarah and I had really wonderful plans to go see, do some swimming in my favorite lake, and those were kiboshed by poor air quality. So we had brunch instead, which was really fun. Hey, Shelley, good to see you. All right, let's get started. So we have Shelley and Kristy here today, and they're going to talk about their experiences getting SNAP approved for their organizations. They both took slightly different routes. All of the answers will not come from this conversation, but I think it's instructive for us to hear from each other about what we've done and what we've tried and how we actually achieved it. I know there's a tremendous amount of frustration around SNAP and getting granted SNAP approval for our varying operations, especially when we use the word hub when we talk to people. Hub is a very confusing word, and sometimes it can help us to take a step back and think about how we describe what it is we actually do. In the words of Lauren Gwynn, the famous Lauren Gwynn, our nouns and verbs that can help us wend our way through this terrible process. Kristy or Shelley, which one of you wants to go first? Kristy, is that you waving your hand? You are muted.
Oh my God, I couldn't get back to you. I just went to put my name in the stupid Google Doc and I got lost forever.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault. I can go since I'm already blustering. So I'm Kristy Athens. I live in Northeast Oregon, Wallowa County. I have a very small food hub. It's based out of my home. I am the only employee and I'm not even employed. And so my business model is an LLC. I'm intending to become a benefit company, but that's another story. But a for-profit, and I have an online store. I use Gray's Cart as my platform and not Local Food Marketplace, which is another conversation. And I do home delivery. So there's no pickup points. I deliver to homes and workplaces every week in Wallowa County and once a month in Union and parts of Union and Umatilla counties. So that's the background. And then, excuse me. So I originally applied to accept SNAP, not anticipating that much engagement. I've not expected that many people to use SNAP, simply because of some of the price points on my stuff. And I don't have, excuse me, I don't have liquid milk. There's no dairy close enough to me to be able to do that at this point in time. So it was more of a goodwill gesture and a little bit of PR to do that. So at the time, early 2021 was when I first started to pursue this. This business launched in 2020, in June of 2020. So I have to turn the chat off, otherwise I get distracted. I'll turn it off. So Sydney, tell me if anything is I need to act on. In February of 2021, I started to pursue getting SNAP, and I knew that because I had served on the farmers market board here a couple of years before that I would need a remote device, and that it would be difficult to get one because AT&T doesn't really work here consistently, and that is what now of course I can't remember the business that provided the farmers market with a free mobile device. Perhaps it will come to me, but so I talked to Safe Read. What was her first name with a C that we miss dearly? Whose name I can't remember.
Caitlin
Caitlin. I thought it was Caitlin, but that didn't seem right. Okay, yeah.
The fabulous Caitlin, dearly missed.
And yes, and so she is with North Coast Food Hub or Food Routes. At the time, I was confused about them because they were sharing vans and I wasn't sure who was with whom. But anyway, they had gone through the process of getting a device, so I talked to her about it. And I can talk about why I chose things, but I ended up going with Total Pay Go, which looks like that. It's a little app on my phone. And then the device itself is really cute. The printer's built in and the swiper's built in, so it's only one piece. Well, unless you include the phone. So anyway, I applied online. At the time, there was that pilot for mobile stores, but you had to be selected for that. You can apply for it, and I don't know if that's changed or not. So I just looked at, I didn't realize it was going to be difficult, and so I just looked at the options, and there was delivery route, and that's what I do, so I just chose that. So I inadvertently sidestepped that whole issue with calling yourself a hub and then backpedaling and saying, no, we're not a hub, we're a grocery store, which I know a lot of farmers markets and other entities have had to do. So and I wasn't on purpose, I just happened to choose that one. So I got my emails here to track, to remember how this went down, but I did that in February. And then maybe I did it sooner, but I didn't hear from anybody for a while. So then I sent an inquiry, and then I heard back from somebody named Debbie, and she said, you need more information. And I could share my screen here, but it's a list of a bazillion things. Vehicle registrations, driver's license, food license, business tax return, personal tax return, employees for all, or records for all the employees, which I don't have, delivery route, copies of invoices from food suppliers, all this stuff. And then of course, in classic government speak, if you do not receive all documents as listed above within 30 days, we will suspend work on your application. So I got to work on that and put my packet together. And I had to wait for my 2020 tax return. I'm just scrolling through my emails here. So then I mailed off this giant packet. I did it certified to make sure that they got it. Oh, this is when I didn't hear from anyone. So I sent everything in June. What happened here? Oh, I was waiting for my tax return. And then I didn't hear from anything. And so on September 22nd, I sent an email and said, hey, just checking on this application. Because you can go into the thing and check your status. And I kept checking and nothing was changing. So finally I sent her an email and it bounced. So she wasn't working there anymore. And so then I went to their site and found somebody else, said, hey, this is what's happening. She said, oh, sorry, I'll redirect you. So then I finally got approved. Oh, I don't even know when. I think in September or October. It took a really long time. The other the other email that I got was, we've got all your stuff. We may send someone out to inspect your store at any time, and we don't tell you ahead of time, and you just have, and if they come, you have to give them full access to everything. And I thought, okay, that's fine, but also, what are the chances someone is actually going to come out to me in Malheur County as soon as they look at the map? That's not going to happen. So no, sure enough, nobody has ever come to look at my store. And so those are the main things. Cindy, do you want me to hit on anything else?
No, I think so. You are only delivery. You don't do any pickup in your location. So is that why you had to be, or why you were able to do the delivery? Do you know?
I guess. I mean, I did this such a long time ago, and I just remember there were, a couple of different options. I don't think anything I have says what the options were, but I first did this online application, and then I ended up sort of reapplying with paper. But yeah, the rest of them just didn't see, I'm not a grocery store, nobody comes here to shop. And so it just seemed like the right choice for me. So I made that choice without knowing that there was any potential for complication regarding what you say you are.
Would you do anything differently next time?
I don't think so, because I got permission and I got a machine and I get paid whenever I use it. So it seems to be
I think
working.
you're our only delivery SNAP. I mean, I think you're the only one that has gotten SNAP under the delivery category.
I think so too, because
so
most hubs do other kinds of fulfillment.
Other
Yeah.
fulfillment.
And I ship,
right.
but I don't use SNAP for shipment. So everybody may not know, the key points with being able to accept SNAP is you have to have the physical card in your hand. You can't just get the number from somebody, and they have to put the PIN in. You cannot do that. So when I do it, I have my phone and I just hold it up and they put it in. I don't see it. And it has to be a machine. It can't be a regular card swiper, because it has to, first of all, connect with the SNAP system, but also has to give them a receipt on site.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we'll hold, if any questions have come up, we'll hold them until after we hear from Shelley, and we'll do a big discussion after that. All right, Shelley, if you want to describe your shenanigan, because I know yours was pretty significant and you had to start over and regroup a number of times. And then if you would also talk about the pilot that you are doing.
Sure thing. So I had conveniently blacked out a lot of this experience because it's pretty challenging. So I am looking at my notes and looking at some dates. I have a binder where I just started keeping absolutely everything from FNS at the beginning of this process. So, I mean, our situation started as far back as 2020. I believe I applied a couple of times early in the pandemic. Took me a while to realize why those were being we were being denied, and that happened to be because of a discrepancy in the name spelling of an owner and the social security name, like the way my name was spelled between my social security card and my driver's license was different. So that was a holdup for about a year or so. And then let me see so it's been 2 or 3 attempts to make this happen, and each attempt would be maybe 3 months between getting information back from the USDA and then trying to figure out what we needed to do to resubmit or fix so that they actually would take it in. So our final attempt, I would say, started last fall. I work with Lane County Bounty. We're in the Eugene, Oregon area, and we are a single farm-owned online marketplace. So Lane County Bounty, we buy and sell from farms in the area, and we own it as a for-profit. So let me see. So we use Shopify. Shopify is our platform. And I saw some news. I get, Shopify information through my email sometimes. And I heard about a new software company that was acting as a payment processor for EBT cards online. And they'd already got a couple of different Shopify food stores to be taking EBT through the checkout. And I was like, this is amazing. I have like a line on a company that can do this for us. So I started to dive into the process again. So I think it was last fall I got in touch with Forage, and Forage is a company based in San Francisco. They act like another payment processor. And so once we're finally able to process cards through Forage, it'll just be a percentage. There's no other fees that I just signed the contract with them. So it's comparable to other just online card processing fees, which is amazing, especially because they've done a bunch of hand holding through this process. And recently Forage partnered with Grocerist, which is a software company that we also work with. Grocerist basically hosts our website and helps with certain amounts of setup and troubleshooting and configuration. So at this point in time, I believe Forage only works with companies who also are contracted with Grocerist to run just their website. So those are the two players that have made this possible for me. And when I discovered this possibility and talked to the people at Forage, I was like, okay, it's time to do this again. So I applied. So to become part of their online purchasing pilot, which is what that part of the FNS application is called, you first have to just be approved as a brick and mortar store. So it meant me just at square one again, getting an FNS number and getting approved as a retailer. I was confused at first if I should be a farm direct retailer or a brick and mortar retailer. We do both. So I'm a farmer. I sell a lot of my own produce through this website. We also do a lot of wholesaling and brokering of other people's produce. So I couldn't really get a straight answer on which route was the best for me. However, I was told that only the brick and mortar applications would be able to become an online purchaser or online retailer. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go for that. One of the big differences between those two is that they have the brick and mortar stores have certain categories that you need to have inventory in. So I forget exactly what that is, but I think you need to have 3 different SKUs for produce, and you need to have 3 to 5 different stocking units of each of the. So you need to have basically 5 bunches of carrots, and you need to have 5 pints of tomatoes, and 5 pints of strawberries or something like that. We also needed to have 3 dairy items or 3 grain and cereal items. We qualified. We had all of that. And so I was like, I think we technically are a brick and mortar. We can do this. We didn't have open hours for people to come and shop on site at the time. We still don't. But we were also going through a location change, and the address on your application is huge. It's all about that address. So between January and March, we were moving locations, and inventory was stored in 2 sites. So it really wasn't reasonable for us to begin that process for our new location when we were still operating at our old location. And my shenanigans included like driving over 5 bunches of carrots and 5 wheels of cheese, etc., in order to be prepared and meet requirements for this unknown time that the USDA reviewer was going to come through and see my brick and mortar store. There was a lot of little hitches, a lot of little details. They really don't want you to become a food stamp retailer, as far as I can tell. I think the system is really geared up towards gas stations and different like small shops to just like make sure people who mostly sell beer and cigarettes are having enough food on site to be able to qualify. So my reviewer came by, and that was actually one of the most stressful experiences, mostly because I think I had put the wrong hours down. So I said we had at first 24-hour, we're open 24 hours because that's what our website is. But what you really need to do is just limit the number of hours to when you're on site with that inventory, or like when your pickup hours are, et cetera. So that was one mistake I made. I was able to beg FNS and this person to come back. They really were not happy about it because the reviewers are contractors. So my contact with USDA did me a huge favor in sending that person back. However, they when they did that, they transcribed my open hours wrong. So I was coming to make sure I had my inventory stocked within the hours I had stated, but I got a call that the reviewer was already there. And yeah, that was just like a clerical error made by the USDA that led to me nearly just getting kicked out and needing to start over at the beginning. And mind you, that's 3 months after I had started this process. I was able to talk to the USDA, and she was like, look, I cannot, you're clearly not a brick and mortar. I'm a farm stand. You didn't have the inventory on site, and I can approve you as a farm direct vendor right now. I cannot call you a brick and mortar. And so I was like, okay, I'll take it. I'll take whatever you can give me. A week later, I get the news that now they're accepting farmers, farm direct retailers for the online purchasing pilot. So all that headache was not really necessary. And they changed the rules to include my classification as a farm direct vendor. So then we started the online purchasing pilot paperwork, and that has taken another 3 months between needing to submit a certain round of paperwork, waiting weeks or months to then have them receive those and then ask for the next step. So I think that this morning I sent in my last little bit of paperwork with that pilot, the online purchasing pilot. So I haven't gone live yet. We're entering the testing phase. So I don't really know what could happen. I don't know what could go wrong at this point, although based on experience, who knows? Although it feels like a really positive milestone, and I'm looking forward to being able to go live. So once I did receive that FNS number and the ability to use Total Pay Go, just like Kristy did, we haven't had a lot of traction on that because we need people to come to our primary location, which is a little bit out of town. So it just having, and because we are getting a bunch of review on our website for the online purchasing, I didn't want to go with the offline food stamp voucher. I didn't really want to do the vouchers because there's a possibility that we weren't going to be using it right, or I didn't want to be sneaky about it. And so, yeah, I could try to talk a little bit more about the process of the online thing, but I don't know if, this is all terrible. You're right. It was terrible. and is really hard. So I guess one of the keys to success with the online purchasing pilot, as far as I can tell, is to find you need a good software partner who can work just to do all of this. So I believe that, for instance, like local food marketplace could take this role that Forage has, or could even partner with another online purchasing software company to make this happen. But you need the processor, which is an independent company that has a relationship with the USDA. And once you have that processor who's willing to do the installation onto your website of that payment module and just make sure all like the huge list of requirements is ready to go. Yeah, it's pretty much a critical part, is finding a processor who can work with your online store to plug that in.
I'm with Erin Maidlow. This all sounds terrible. I know Food Roots and Food Web have had their assorted struggles with FNS, and I'm wondering if there's questions out there for Shelley and Kristy. Thank you both for kicking out this conversation. Are there questions about any of these processes that folks have? Yeah, Twyla.
Oh. Hi, there I am. Hi, everyone. Good old snap. So I can commiserate with the this being terrible. I came into this role here at the Food Web during a time of a lot of transition. We moved from one location to another location. When we moved from that location to this location, certain pieces of certain roles were in different folks' hands. So Caitlin was really holding, because this is so complicated, she was our SNAP owner, and that the USDA will only speak to the person who they have all of that information for. So the person who is on the account is the only person they will talk to. We've figured out that the next time we apply, we can make the ED the owner, and we can go ahead and add an administrator to the account. That still leaves you in a situation where the USDA will only speak to those two people. And you know, as Shelley was saying, that if there's any sort of change internally, it makes it really complicated to update the USDA. So we moved. We did not realize right away that we did not change our address with the USDA. They still had our old address. Our FNS number was still under our old address. Then Caitlin left while we were trying to navigate that. She has moved on to a really awesome new role and is still in touch. But we're still working on transferring our FNS number into current staff's name and fixing that address problem. And we've come to the conclusion that we are going to have to start from square one. We will have to reapply at this address with our ED as the owner of the account and me as the administrator, provide them all new information and set ourselves up as a retail store. We do already have all of the equipment. As of right now, we're operating in a little bit of a gray area, to be honest. We are trying to navigate the situation the best we can. Food Roots, from my understanding, did actually, they kind of stepped ahead of us and were dealing with something very similar. And they, from my understanding, in moving to their new location, fortunately were kind of set up as Shelley is, as they had all of the things on hand that they needed. We're a little bit of we run a little bit differently, and we don't have any of the things that I mentioned up in the link that I put in the meeting chat. on site at all times. So we're trying to navigate that currently. We're doing a little bit of new food access programming. So we're trying to make it so that those items that they're requiring us to have on site during our open hours are items that we can feed into our free food box. So we have funding to always have those items on our shelves. Because we work on a consignment basis. So to purchase those items from farmers and not necessarily have a direction for them to go, we're navigating that. The requirements are kind of some of the things aren't shelf stable or have very short timelines before they spoil. So that's where we're at with that right now. We've heard a lot of chatter about the online purchasing pilot, so it's kind of interesting to hear you speak on what it takes to actually navigate that, Shelley. And I might, if you wouldn't mind, gather your contact information after this and maybe poke you a little bit, because when we began to navigate this, that wasn't something that anyone else had stepped into. It was something that they were saying that was going to be an option, but there was no real understanding of what the requirements for that option were. So that's where we're at right now. And now we're trying to navigate our delivery programming, and the USDA, the voucher system is something that, as Shelley said, you want to try to avoid being sneaky, but when the rules aren't made for you, you have to figure out how to navigate them. And so that was the way that we figured out how to, prior to me being involved in this programming, they had figured out how to navigate the system with the voucher system for deliveries. But the USDA doesn't really they haven't said anything about it, but that's not what those are meant to be used for. And so there has been in prior hub meetings where we have talked about SNAP, a few folks have mentioned that that's not allowed, but a lot of folks do it. Food Roots does it because they have to, and we might have to do it as well for our delivery programming. I would love to learn more about the text messaging and emailing of those food vouchers, because the piece of it that gets a little complicated is legally, the number, like we have spoken on, the number of the person's SNAP number is supposed to remain confidential, and that's not supposed to be shared at all. So the food voucher system is really set up for, in case your card reader doesn't work, for you to in person take that information from the customer, and it's supposed to be confidential and not ever change hands. And so we're contracting an outside potentially contracting the outside delivery person who will not be necessarily associated with the food web directly, and we were thinking about how to navigate that without having that person have that SNAP training. So the text messaging or emailing of that information from the customer directly to us. I'd like to know a little bit more about how that's been working for you, or if anyone has any concern about that being a no-no. Because that sounds awesome and like it would help us navigate one of the pieces of this really complicated puzzle. So that is
yeah, I think go ahead. Was that Kristy or who? Was it Shelley? Yeah, thank you.
I haven't implemented this, but I believe that it's possible to just give your delivery driver a card reader and like a device that is your device, and use that just like Square on the go. So that was something we looked at doing, and we haven't because we have something else going on. But I believe you should be able to have your delivery driver charge that card at the door. It just requires somebody to be on site.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I use this, and I use my own phone, and if I ever have employees, I'll just get a tablet that is dedicated to the business.
So that seems like the best way to go without needing to be like playing in the gray area with the offline vouchers.
Twyla and Lindsay, I'm guessing that the reason that, or Lindsay, I guess, that the reason that Food Roots was using the vouchers was around not being able to or wanting to coordinate the time and actually get in person with the person because your delivery routes are so dispersed. Is that the issue with you guys?
Yeah, so we have community drop-off sites and which always have a window to them depending on, how many other home deliveries we have to do that day. The delivery time at a certain site will vary to a couple hours. So people aren't going to wait around at that site to pick up their food. So we put the vouchers in the bag for them. And then also people don't need to be home to receive their home delivery. So in order to get around all that, we do use vouchers. So this is since I'm new to this position, I started in May, I think this bring up a couple questions for me. This whole conversation's on SNAP. Does anyone know if employees are automatically covered or if each employee has to get SNAP training in order to receive the voucher?
I have a little bit of information that Caitlin left with me in a binder that is the SNAP training, that is what the SNAP training is. In order for anyone, from my understanding, from our organization to accept SNAP, they have had to do that training. So our one volunteer who does our distribution has done that training. I'm unsure if, and this is a really great question. So I'm glad that you asked that. I'm unsure if that training has to be done on a yearly basis. I'm unsure if, I know that the person who facilitates the transaction has to do that training. So I've done that training, and one other staff member has done that training, and our volunteer has done that training. And so because we're so small, the person who would be actually calling the USDA number to do the complete the loop transaction, that person is the person who is SNAP certified or what have you.
Gotcha. All right, thank you so much for that explanation. I'm going to definitely delve into SNAP a bit more after this call to make sure we have all our bases covered here.
Right, and if you'd like to set up a meeting, Lindsay, so that we can chat, I'm totally available to do that.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, and if anyone has any questions for me about vouchers, you can definitely ask me. Because we do accept, the SNAP vouchers, and they don't require the PIN on the voucher. It does have their EBT card number. It doesn't require their PIN. So although we accept their PIN in person, they punch it into the machine. The PIN is not required on the voucher. In case anyone was worried about PIN numbers on vouchers.
I also just dropped the CSA SNAP for Farmers Guide, which I know is not specifically you guys, but also kind of intersects with some of the things that some of you do, and it might be useful for some of you, especially if you are just making your way into the very tangled world of SNAP. And I believe this guide, they talk a little bit about the vouchers. Do we have other questions or comments that we want to have about SNAP? Yes.
Question, and does anyone have a contact with local food marketplace and to get an update on online? Because I was just looking at a letter which said that the local food marketplace is one of the potential software companies that MarketLink is working with to develop that pilot. So it could just be that they are working on that program, but it would be pretty cool if they got to that place where they're able to help all the marketplaces make that happen.
I think they're pretty.
Yeah, Shelley, there's local food marketplace is really responsive. I think if you just reach out to whatever their info at or whatever their contact is, you would get a response really quickly. And Amy McCann herself, who has been on with us, is very, very responsive if you want to reach out directly to her. Yeah. I would not hesitate to reach out to them.
I guess I just wanted to say that, it's really about that software company that you work with for that online purchasing program. So just finding your right ally in that regard is kind of the way to get all your info about the SNAP thing online.
And
Okay.
who is your software that you're using? Could you remind me?
Mine, it's
Who is, yeah.
Forage.
Forage.
Forage. I'll try to put up an article about them.
And so
Other
I'm
questions, yeah,
confused,
go.
what role does Forage play? Why don't you just use Total Pay Go?
I don't think that they do the online Total Pay Go doesn't do the online processing.
Oh, right. Yes, sorry.
Because we all need more software, especially at the scale that we're at. We all need 500 different pieces of software to do it.
It's too, yeah,
Seems kind of crazy.
Please give me another password.
Right. And they all want like slightly different things out of their passwords. Other comments or questions here? Yeah.
I'm just out of curiosity. So from what you said, you have not launched this yet, Shelley. So you haven't like tested how the system works to do the transaction online, right?
Not on my website, but it's been tested on other websites. That I just dropped a link and it has some screenshots of checkouts and it'll pretty much look just like that. Some things that we've had to do to prepare our website include tagging EBT eligible items and separating them from like craft items that you can't use food stamps from. So you have to have some system to distinguish between eligible items and ones that aren't.
LFM already does that, so it's really awesome. When you enter something into the system at the bottom of you entering that item, it allows you to make that clarification for the EBT folks.
Yeah.
But this sounds like that if this works out, if we can get accepted for that, it's going to like solve both of the problems that we're having. So that's really cool, because if you do a delivery transaction, they can charge their SNAP online, theoretically.
Yeah, absolutely. And they would have to put in a credit card as well for the delivery fees or whatever else. But yeah, I'm looking at a press release from MarketLink from January of last year. It's actually from 2022, saying that MarketLink is in partnership with Novadia Group and WorldPay, developing 4 e-commerce platforms, beginning with Local Food Marketplace, Fellow Farmer, Grown By, and What's Good are also looking at those. I believe that Grown By is closer to being able to launch this, although they're kind of a different platform that might not meet everybody's needs.
Abigail, do you want to talk a little bit about, you said something about farmers markets having it easier somehow?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is relevant for kind of like the food hubs and like physical facilities, but I've helped 2 farmers markets get SNAP, and I think it's a bit easier because I've like done the initial paperwork with them based off like ideal vendors to get them like a variety of products. And then like once they were approved, since they didn't like have a lot of capacity to like actually fill out the application, once they were approved, I called and transferred the ownership, and even one market also moved locations, and they just needed like another like who the owner is identification thing signed, and they were able to change it like within a couple of weeks. So I don't know why it's like farmers markets, but
yeah, I'm wondering if that's because farmers market is a form of business that the USDA understands, and the way a lot of our hubs work, I feel like feels complicated to the USDA. It's not all that complicated. We aggregate and we resell, and sometimes we do that in an online marketplace that only does that once a week or however we do it. But for some reason that feels really novel to the USDA. or to the USDA's systems, I should say.
Yeah.
When you talk to anybody from the actual USDA, they're like, yeah, of course, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so I
but
don't-
it
I don't know
sounds
if
like
that's
farmers
right.
market is a category they understand.
And they're like over the past few years trying to help people with them. It seems like it's gotten better and like more flexible with the high turnover, farm markets changing locations regularly, things like that. So yeah, I don't know if it's like very helpful for this group, but that's where I've been able to kind of help farm markets in our region, capacity wise, just like doing that application for them and then transferring ownership.
Yep. Well, I think, one of the things that I'm getting out of this conversation, and I think, we started the conversation last month, is there is some collection of information that you guys are providing in this conversation that I need to find a way to get to the USDA. We have this whole category of activity that is difficult for the USDA to understand and therefore give approval to. And they need to understand more about what that is. Part of it is so many of you are doing these rural activities that sort of necessitate delivery and necessitate not having direct personal access to the receiver of the food, because your routes change, they're really long, you can't necessarily coordinate with people. So I think there's work that I can do to help elevate this conversation to those folks and find a pathway. And we're collecting that information here. So thank you for sharing how hateful the experience is, because I think it's useful for us to all understand that it is hard. We are all struggling. It doesn't sound like it's been easy for anyone except for maybe Kristy Athens, who is very unique amongst us. And Erin, you applied as a farmer's market?
Well, so we're doing a pop-up market, like that's what we're doing for now. So I actually applied the first time through Market Link. My kids are here driving me nuts. So I applied first as like a food hub and they turned me down immediately through Market Link. And so then summer camp just ended. So then just go find something. Oh my word. Y'all don't have birth control. That's a good time to think about that.
Funny.
I applied for a food hub first, but then we got denied and I was like, well, we actually are a market right now because we're doing pop-up markets. And so I applied that way as a farmer's market, because that's really all we are. Like, we're not aggregating anything. The farmers are bringing us stuff and selling it. And then I just like today filled out the grown by info. So I'm hoping that's a simpler process. Our local, like I'm on our farmers market board and they use Total Pay, and I've never heard of them having issues with SNAP at all. So I'm curious how this process for us is going to go, because yeah, all of this sounds awful. Like, I don't want to do this.
Right.
But
So
like,
do consumers order online from you and then or are you just organizing a farmer's market, a pop-up farmer's market where you are? And am I envisioning the farmer's market the way you're saying it?
yeah, so right now they don't order online, but we do have, like, we're starting to get people like the microgreens guy. We're starting to, like, he wants to drop off pounds at a time of microgreens and then send that out. So yeah, I don't know, like there's kind of, we're in that gray area where, we are doing a farmer's market, and I do want to have the benefits available, because like our kitchen where the farmer's market will be is downstairs from apartment buildings that house folks who utilize social services, and like probably all of them are on SNAP benefits. So like we want them to be able to buy, but then also restaurants and stuff want to be able to pick up from us. So, and obviously they don't have SNAP benefits, but if farmers are dropping off like large amounts of produce and we are aggregating it out, that's not a market. So I think at that point we'll have to shift. But I'm like, for now, if it's working as a farmer's market, I don't know.
I mean, I think you're thinking exactly the correct way. You know, Kristy is able to do the delivery, and that makes perfect sense for Kristy because what Kristy does is very specifically this delivery thing. If what you're doing is a farmer's market, I mean, absolutely. Even if you're doing other hub activities where you're selling your WIC or your SNAP foods is your farmer's market. And that's, I think, exactly the right approach is identify the nouns and verbs, find the one that fit and apply under that. Rather
it's
than muddying it up with
intimidating.
this idea that I'm a hub, like forget about being a hub. I'm a this when it comes to FNS.
Yeah, the hub thing sounds really awful to try and get SNAP for, but like we're downtown and there's no fresh food where we are. And so, I mean, if it's individuals buying it, I see that as a market. Whereas if and restaurants aren't going to be using SNAP benefits. So like restaurants and institutions are the main people that our food hub would probably serve. So we're not really going to need SNAP for that as much. So we'll see how it goes.
No, that makes perfect sense. Like your SNAP
later.
activity is a farmer's market.
Right.
And that makes perfect sense.
So hopefully.
Jude, this is interesting that WIC and senior nutrition is also going to potentially become more challenging or is becoming more challenging. Other folks, comments or questions on SNAP? Did we learn anything?
Yes.
Did you?
I did. Unexpectedly. Oh my God, we're already involved in SNAP. This could be kind of educational, maybe to see what others are going through. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much to learn.
Yeah, it's a really challenging thing. All right. Do we have any other questions for Kristy and Shelley while their brains are in their SNAP mode? Shelley, yes.
I just had two, thinking out loud. Well, one, I just wanted to mention ownership of product because that can be a thing that comes up. The online purchasing pilot people have asked me several times, they've confirmed with me, do you own everything on Lane County Bounty? And yes, except for some of the craft items, we've done consignment. So thinking about who the owner of the items is and being really clear on that is important, and making sure you have all that information from those owners in advance. We're thinking about switching to a cooperative model, and I don't even know what that's going to do to this process. It might, I don't know if that'll throw a wrench in anything, but my suggestion, or something that maybe we could do as a group, would be to come up with a really clear sort of checklist as a firm is like going into the process. We could have maybe just some clarifying information that we've learned collectively through this time. Like here are the different hubs that have qualified as these different, these are the general characteristics that will lead you to be a farmer's market or lead you to be a brick and mortar. And just we've got some common pitfalls, right? Like hours of operation. And I think we could create a document that could maybe just prep people or streamline them. And also just understanding the timeline that every single back and forth with USDA is going to take you 3 weeks.
Yeah. How would you, when you talk about creating that, document, what would be the most useful version of it? Like an FAQ that we keep on our shared files website?
Yeah, definitely. Or just like common pitfalls, or the uncommon pitfalls. Here are all the pitfalls that anyone has gone through. If we write it down and somebody could look at that in advance and be like, okay, my personal identification is wrong. Or, oh, we still have an owner listed on our business registry that's no longer with us. And like, just tell people to like clean that stuff up in advance.
That is a great idea. And I'm trying to take a note for myself to reference this meeting when I go back and do this task.
And
Yeah.
I wonder if we couldn't do this again, but get somebody from USDA to be on the call and tell them to brace themselves for the onslaught of angry people.
I like the brace yourselves. All right.
Jude put up an interesting comment about grants, and I do want to add that I have a for-profit, and even I was able to get a grant for this device. We had past tense a slow food chapter in Malawi County. It's another side conversation. And so because the device, I think my grant was for $750, which included the device and 1 year of access to Total Pay. I think Total Pay is like $300 a year. It's not cheap. But yeah, so this is definitely something that is grant worthy.
That's great. Thanks, Jude, for putting that up there too. I forget about all of those ones. Other SNAP shenanigans we want to share or ask each other about while we have our attention focused on SNAP shenanigans.
I feel like
I did see something about they might be changing the rules about hot food. And I can't remember where I saw it. Has anybody else seen that? That so right now you cannot use SNAP for any food that is ready to eat.
they've federally kind of already modified it a little bit over the last year or two, where they have made it so that you can purchase some hot food from fast food establishments. That it has already been implemented, and it's specifically for places that are in rural communities, essentially food deserts, places that don't have a nearby grocery store. They have implemented that already.
So that could affect, it wouldn't affect a business like mine, but it could affect the farmers markets that have food stands as well.
Yeah. But we can look more into that. I have a quick question, and I know that we probably don't have a lot of time to talk about it, but just today even, we were, our grant writer, Shelley, and I were looking at some metrics just in our county. The last time that they had produced any sort of SNAP metric for our county was from 2019 surveying, and they have recently released 2023's version of those metrics for our county. And the math isn't really mathing for us. In 2019, the numbers are a lot higher for the allocations of benefits, when during the pandemic they have claimed that they have increased SNAP benefits and changed the requirements for SNAP benefits due to the pandemic. And then in February, they went back to what it was in 2019. And that affected our constituents and customers tremendously. We had people who were receiving $140 as a single person have their SNAP benefit reduced to $14 with very little, without really, they didn't know. And so we're just sitting here looking at the numbers, and they don't seem to be producing the information that we thought we understood to be true. And so I'm curious if the SNAP allocation change that they made in 2020 for the pandemic is a separate set of funding that is not actually being isn't showing up in these metrics that I'm reading. Has anyone else received or looked into their county's SNAP metrics from before and after the pandemic allocation change recently at all. Because as I said, I was just doing that right before this meeting, so I don't really have a great question to ask, but I'm just wondering if anyone else is confused by the metrics that they're reading. No. Okay. Yeah, it just
You're on
doesn't.
your own there.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, if I find out anything, I will share it with y'all, because I think that that's something we're also navigating right now, is trying to understand the need and where the change happened and what the change was. And so if I find out anything profound about the federal allocations, I'll be sure to share that with y'all.
That'd be great. Yeah, I haven't seen any of that. What other questions, SNAP or otherwise, do we have as a group while we have some brain trust together in one room?
I have an unrelated question to SNAP.
Yeah, go. Unrelated is good.
And maybe this isn't, maybe no one here has any input on this, but I have a producer who, she has an apiary, and so she sells honey, but she'd like to infuse her honey, and the ODA processor told her that she has to extract it from the comb in a commercial kitchen. Like, she doesn't have to do that just for her honey she sells at market, but to infuse it, she would have to extract it all in the commercial kitchen, which I think sounds ridiculous. Does anyone work with anyone who sells infused honey?
I do. And she got a permit to, or she is a home producer. And I can find out more about what process she went, but she was approved through the ODA. The ODA went to her home and inspected her kitchen. She didn't have any pets, and she was able to produce her honey out of her own kitchen.
The infused honey, or just extract it there?
It's an elderberry infused honey. So I will find out a little bit more about what processes happened in order to make that be legal for her.
Okay, yeah, our inspector's kind of new, and she asked for input, but that just sounded crazy to me, to like bring the combs to a commercial kitchen to extract the honey, when you could just use the honey that's already been extracted.
Well, and see, that might be the caveat for our producer, is they purchase their honey. They're not an apiary. They purchase their honey from a local apiary, but that apiary produces their honey at their apiary, and then she infuses it.
Yeah, see, that would be the same thing. I don't
understand why there would be a different rule for the producer who's doing it all on their apiary, unless there's some sort of, the honey rules are weird, not weird, they're just very extensive. And so maybe there just isn't, there's a step in there for getting her commercial kitchen approved, or not her commercial kitchen, her at-home kitchen approved for this process. And maybe that's not what's happening. I'm not sure, but I can look into it more, Erin, for you.
I was also going to say that you might want to, it sounds like she's operating as a farm direct, if she's not using any ODA stuff. So maybe comb through the recent changes to farm direct, and possibly Friends of Family Farmers could help explain if there's any new rules in there that maybe that inspector wasn't up to date on.
Right.
Yeah.
And good point. I just came out of a meeting earlier today specifically about that. And the rules don't go into effect until the end of September. And that's if the ODA has their rulemaking session and by that time. So they actually haven't even had that rulemaking session. So what you're saying, Shelley, is probably what's happening.
Yeah, I wonder if it's, she is doing farm direct right now, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I was like, that can't be right. I cannot imagine any producer bringing their combs to a commercial kitchen. She's not, she's trying to use my commercial kitchen, not her own, but I cannot imagine bringing the whole, all her combs and extracting honey there. So thank you, that was helpful. That was very random question too.
But it
Great
does also
random
raise the question, if Twyla, your producer is using a home kitchen, then she should be direct selling it, not through you. Probably.
That's what I thought too, but let me see. Originally I had the same question, but this happened back when I had first started in this role, so I was still learning. But I did contact Barbara Kripe, who is our ODA rep for that producer, because I was confused. And she gave it a go. So Elderberry, I'm looking for her licensing here.
I think if it would be, if it was inspected, if it was a home domestic kitchen that was inspected by the ODA, then it wouldn't be farm direct. I think that gives you that leeway, because you don't need a farm direct kitchen to ever be inspected. But
Is that true?
Under market agreements.
yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any regulation around what a farmer direct processed
Mhm.
kitchen looks like. The whole point is that the ODA does not step foot there, which
Right. She is a domestic kitchen food processor, so it's not farm direct. She is purchasing her products from local farms and processing them in her kitchen, which makes it legal to sell through our market. And that is very difficult for most producers to do, specifically like what she is. There are a lot of what she is making only includes two ingredients. So I think that that's what made that easier for her. If you're processing any sort of meat, dairy, this is not an option for you. If you're farm direct and your food is coming from your farm, and like you said, you're processing it at your farm direct kitchen where the ODA doesn't ever go, we can't sell your market or your food through our market because of that gray area in the law that they just changed, the SB 507. So we will be able to sell those products soon. Those farm direct, certain types of those farm direct products here soon.
I bet that is
You
where,
can-
sorry.
I was just going to say, you can see how much work that Food Web in particular does with food entrepreneurs and how long they've been doing that work through just the sheer amount of knowledge, Twyla, that you're sharing with us about how exactly you're threading the needle of who you can purchase from is pretty incredible.
It's a fun puzzle, it's the rules are different for every single type of producer, and they're really complicated and harder and very difficult for the producers to navigate. So I've learned a lot from these meetings. I just hit my 1-year anniversary at this job, and this meeting has been a very valuable resource for me. So thank you all for sharing every bit of information that you've shared.
Thanks for sharing what you're sharing, because it's great and helpful. Erin, you had something to say. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's okay. I just put it in the chat. I just think that is probably where the mix up is. Like, she is farm direct now because it's coming from her house. And so the ODA person is probably, I mean, she should know that, like, if she's making it in the commercial kitchen, it's no longer farm direct. But yeah, it was just like bizarre to hear her say that. And everyone else that makes infused honey here was like, I just don't ask, I just do it. I'm like, well, she's trying to do it the legal way, so I want to help her out, but this is not an easy process if she has to extract it in the kitchen.
Yeah, Erin, where you're at with your hub and the relationships that you're having with farmers and producers now, honestly feels a lot to me like where Food Web was in the end of 2020, early 2021, where they were working with a lot of home producers, and they were using the consignment model, and sort of slowly shifted to, we need to be legal and we need to do things in a way that ODA isn't going to freak out about. And it sounds like you're having a lot of those same conversations. So I do feel like it might be worth you and Lila getting some time together and sort of talking through some of the resources that Food Web has developed, because Food Web has developed some resources and has done some trainings and may have some recordings of those trainings that would be useful to you for your folks. But I know that Food Web was in a very similar spot, and to a lesser extent, Food Roots had always had the storefront, so they had taken a slightly different approach and didn't have to do quite as much adjustment. But the North Coast has gone through a lot getting to where they are now.
Well, I'd be happy to take a trip up there because I love that area. But
Well, anytime.
as you call whatever. What was that?
I'll drop my email into the meeting chat and we can set something up.
Okay.
Cool. Do we have any other burning questions from this group? Or not so burning, smoldering questions? Any smoldering questions out there?
No, but I do have to sign off. So I just wanted to say thank you for another rousing conversation of SNAP SNAP torture.
I feel like we're never going to be done with SNAP. Thank you for sharing your specific experience. I think it was illuminating and making yourself available to answer those questions, and a great idea on the common pitfalls that we've experienced fact sheet. I think that's I will get on making that happen.
Thanks. I know I said what we could do, but thank you for any work that you do to.
Well, I mean, we're doing it. I'll be reaching out to all of you to help build it out. So we're doing it together. I'm
Thank
just
you so
coordinating.
much. Thank you.
Thank you. Burning, smoldering questions from this group. Well, we've got a few more minutes, and while we have folks here, I'd love to hear, we haven't kind of checked in on what we're working on and what's been going great. And it's been about, I don't know, it's been about a season since we've heard from each other about what we're doing that's going well. So I would love to do a quick round of what we're doing that's going well. And Twyla, why don't you start it off?
Ooh, we've got some fun stuff happening here. In reference to food access work, in response to the SNAP allocation changes that happened in February, we have received some funding from the Oregon Food Bank to have free food boxes available to our market customers. We are providing 10 free food boxes a week to be ordered through the market. Customers can choose from a box that contains meat or seafood proteins and vegetables, or a vegetarian box. They can also choose from a shelf-stable box that contains meat or seafood proteins, or a vegetarian shelf-stable type box that would not require a refrigerator or stove to use. And so each one of those boxes, the food in them is about $40 worth of market goods. We try to include a protein in each box, and then seasonal vegetables, it'll change, or fruits, it'll change weekly. We have some value-added products we add as well. The funding goes through November, but we're trying to procure some more funding because we found that people are really biting, and a lot of folks that were participating in our SNAP program, who have still been participating in our market program, have found this a really awesome resource. And we've also been taking the extra food boxes to our local, if we've had any. The first week we did it, we had a few extra because we didn't do any marketing, because we thought we would like to fix the kinks before we did that. And so we learned something interesting about our local domestic violence shelter, that they have safe houses in our community, and the folks that stay at those safe houses, their personal information is protected, and they pretty much stay inside of the safe houses. So going grocery shopping isn't something that happens. And they are provided with free food boxes through the local food banks, but what goes into those boxes is different every time. So this has been kind of an interesting thing for us to be able to partner with the local domestic violence shelter, because they can just take the leftover free food boxes to the folks in need and close the loop on any waste. So the producer gets paid, the community eats. It's been a good thing. So yeah, that's what we're doing. And we just also received $40,000 worth of funding for new kitchen equipment for our kitchen incubator program, and that is being installed today. So Andy didn't jump off the call, but he is in there putting together freezers. So we're pretty
Um,
excited.
That's all incredibly exciting, and I mean, there's too much to be excited about, but I am so fascinated and appreciative of the coordinating with and working with domestic violence shelters as a way to extend your reach. And I think that's, I am not sure if any other food hubs are doing that, but I think that's the first time that I've heard from this group that they're having relationships with that particular constituency. So very cool, very cool. Kristy, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just curious. I agree. I've thought about how to work with my domestic violence shelter, but I don't do boxes. So I haven't come up with any ideas yet, but it's good to hear that idea. But also I'm wondering how you decide who gets the free boxes.
So the free food box program, we are an online marketplace. So folks who participate in our online marketplace, they just can go online and order the box as though they would a market order. The only requirement that we have for these free food boxes is, and there is a stipulation there's a note at the bottom that says, if by ordering this free food box, you are self-identifying as a need and you are self-identifying as low income. So that's all the OFB asked for. They just said that if someone's hungry, we can give them the food. They don't have to jump through hoops doing any sort of surveying or filling out any sort of paperwork. They don't have to qualify for SNAP. So we got really lucky with our funding. The funding that we did get from Oregon Food Bank is specifically for producers who identify as socially disadvantaged. So we did have to do some surveying internally to figure out which producers identify as socially disadvantaged producers through the USDA's definition. That took a lot of work. We did that footwork, and then the Oregon Food Bank did tell us that we're allowed to spend the funding on folks or with producers that aren't self-identifying as socially disadvantaged, to make a more well-rounded box, but to prioritize purchasing from producers who identify as socially disadvantaged. And that's just a piece of the funding that we received, a stipulation there. For the domestic violence centers, this is a new program. We're still developing this partnership. It's something that's just kind of organically happening, but I did receive a piece of feedback from them that if you did reach out to your local domestic violence shelter, they might be able to tell you what they need. Like they might be able to say, hey, our need is ground beef. Do you have a producer that can get us 10 pounds of ground beef? And then and maybe you can find some funding there to make that loop closed. I know that the Oregon Food Bank did give money to producers this year, directly to producers this year in advance for producing food for the Oregon Food Bank. So the producer received the funding at the top of their year to be able to plan, to be able to give that quantity of food that the food bank needed on a monthly basis to the food bank. And that grant is just ending now. So I know the money's out there and there are ways to navigate, getting it. I went all over the place there, but yeah, it's been a really interesting thing to try to plan, but we're on week 3 right now of the free food box program. I can share.
Awesome.
As we do it.
I think the funds that Twyla is talking about also were the food bank funds that were actually administered through this hub network. I'd done an RFP back in February, which Twyla won. Make sure that you add those comments to the reporting that you all are doing so that we start collecting this really great information about what the hub network is doing. And 2, Kristy, that might be a way for you to access those type of funds. I don't remember, I don't think you did an RFP for that one, or you did a proposal for it. But like, these are really innovative ways that we can start leveraging what our hubs can do. So, I'd encourage you to think about those kind of proposals, because we will have more funding from OFB. I don't know, can't remember what the number is, but we will have some funding to continue this program next year as well. Other cool things that are happening. We've got time for 2 or 3 more cool things that are happening in my hub stories.
I'm just excited. Our Rogue Flavor Guide, which is our farm and food directory, is going into its 20th year of creation. So we're hoping to do like a kind of like a pop-up market type thing in the spring for all the local producers and food businesses in the directory to celebrate.
Congrats, it's amazing. What else is going on out there that's great in the world of food hubs?
That food guide is no joke. Like, it's a full-time job for us. We're on starting work on our 3rd year, and it's nuts. But we're doing the pop-up market this Thursday. It's our first market to bring people to our place to see if there will be more interest in food hub stuff. So I kind of already mentioned it, but it's exciting.
That is incredibly exciting, Erin. Like, what, 2 years ago, you were all, working your way through how to move forward with what food hubbing could look like where you are. And now you're actually doing it. And I really need to come down and visit you and Abigail and all my Southern Oregon folks. So maybe
I think November we have it scheduled for the gathering.
That was the other thing.
Oh, is it scheduled?
Oregon. Yeah, the 8th and 9th of November.
I'll come to
we're
that.
Gonna have Southern Oregon convening through Oregon Community Food System Network. So mark your calendars.
I will go to that one for sure.
I don't think we have location or anything planned, but we're doing it.
I think we're thinking Grants Pass, but I don't know for sure.
It's awesome. I can't wait. What else is happening that is rad and exciting and thrilling and earth shattering in your hubs? Are we all earth shattered out?
Well, on Friday, I did my once a month big loop to Union, Umatilla County, and then I go up to Walla Walla Food Hub. And I have to place my order in advance, and they were all out farming. So when I got there, it was just me to load it up. And my car was full to the brim. I was Tetrising boxes, blasting the AC, sticking ice packs everywhere. I had tomatoes, flats of tomatoes in my front seat with the seatbelt around them. And I had.
Can we have pictures of that? I want to see these seat belted tomatoes for real.
Baby.
I could probably recreate that part because I still have a bunch of them. But I had so it's a 2-hour drive. So I had 2 hours to try to figure out what I was going to do when I got home, because I realized very quickly that I don't have the refrigeration to manage all of the food that I bought. And so I got home, and I have a lot of coolers. I have 2 refrigerators and a lot of coolers. So I got everything put away, and I had already I had 7 orders, and most of them were produce. So I just emailed everybody and said, how would you like to have your order tomorrow morning? And so I packed up orders on Saturday and did a whole route, and that eliminated enough of it that I could put what was left in my refrigerators. But yes, the sooner that infrastructure grant can happen, the better.
Working on it. It's gonna take a little time to get that out on the ground, because we've got to figure out all of the administrative pieces of it. But obviously hoping to get it on the ground as fast as possible.
I know.
I'm just excited that we got it. That's a really nice recognition.
Oh yeah,
from the legislature that we exist.
Absolutely.
All right, you guys, there's time for one more. If there's one more little bit of earth shattering excitement, or we can get 3 minutes back in our day.
Enjoy
Or
your
shattered out.
I want to say something.
Yep,
I would,
Willie, yes,
I would,
you've been
I would
quiet.
convene. Yeah, well, I'm enjoying, even though SNAP is not one of my favorite topics because of some of the issues they're talking about. We have to deal with
Yeah.
that as well in Rockwood. But anyway, I nominate that you take about a minute or two and tell us why you're in Portland.
Well, I'm in Portland for a lot of reasons. I'm doing a small project with EcoTrust and sharing some of the information that we've learned as a hub network and that I learned as, say, the person who put together the red way back in the day with Kamehameha schools in Hawaii. And as part of that, I get to go hang out with Willie tomorrow and go look at Rockwood and all of the East Side projects. And I'm so excited to see my friend Willie because I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah.
And then I'll spend some time with Lauren and Freedom Foundation. So that's my earth shattering news.
Okay. But yeah, I thought you were still at first. I thought you were still in bed until I said, doesn't look, I don't see any books anywhere around there, but yeah.
Yeah,
look
I'm
forward
in
to
a
seeing
rental
you
right
tomorrow.
now.
Yeah. Excited about tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, Willie. All right, you guys.
Where you
Next
all
month, thank you
go.
for.
It's a pretty view of a story.
Oh my goodness, it looks like a glorious day there. It's
Why not
beautiful.
Story of Food Hub here. So have a good rest of
Amazing.
your day. Bye.
That
Bye,
is
you
nice.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.